actually.
Well,
Yeah.
I love your work. I love what you're doing. I'm looking forward to getting into it. Do you have any questions before we
Yeah.
hop in?
No, I'm excited. I've been listening to a bunch of your episodes, and I really appreciate the deep dive that you do with people and the questions that you ask. I think they're really meaningful conversations. So
Thank you.
thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's wonderful.
Mhm.
And I want to begin, as I always do, as you know, I want to begin with the COVID question. 6 years
Mhm.
ago, it changed everything for all of us. How
Mhm.
did you get through that era, and how has it changed the way that you live and go after work these days?
Sure. So I think it was for me the way it was for a lot of people. It was disorientation, it was fear. You know, our generation had never lived through anything like this. And at the time, my partner and I were living in separate towns and we would see each other a few days a week, but we were about 90 minutes apart. And I remember one day being at his home in Salt Lake and we were seeing them just shut down roads. I think it was in Italy. And I thought, what if we can't get on the interstate to see each other? Like, and we're apart for an indefinite amount of time. And it just felt like, yeah, it was just really, really overwhelming. And I will be frank, I don't know what flipped a switch for me. But I made this mental shift of like, okay, this really sucks. What can I do to at least make this awful thing meaningful?
Mhm.
And one of the things that came out of it that exists still to this day is the beginning of the pandemic. My eldest son had just graduated college. He'd just gotten a new job and he was living in a dinky little apartment in Austin, Texas. He'd just gotten a dog before the pandemic, but he didn't have any friends. He didn't have a significant other. And so we started one day a week, what we called virtual family dinner that
Yeah.
came out of it. And so we would have him on the video and we'd eat and we'd talk. And we've kept that up, not so much weekly now because all of our kids are getting very scattered in different time zones, but we kept that up. And I think for me, it really forced me to recognize, they say life is short, but pandemic, my dad was in the hospital early in the pandemic and almost died.
Yeah.
And so it's just like it hits your your soul in a different way. And so it for work wise, it's changed a good bit for me. I'm still in the same anchor job as a university professor, but I wrote a book. I started executive coaching, and then a few years ago, started a relationship wellness business grounded in research. And so those are all things I would never have done before because I would have been too scared. And now it's
Yeah.
like, go do them. What's going to happen? Like the sky's not going to fall down.
Uh-huh, for sure. So let's get into everything that you do on a daily basis. I'm going to put you in
Sure.
front of a bunch of 12, 13-year-olds. It's career day, and one of the kids wants to know what you do for a living. How do you
Sure.
synthesize that for their brains?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, what I would say, if I had to explain what I do to kids, is I help grown-ups figure out whether their relationship is healthy, fixable, and something they should keep staying in. And because a lot of adults, and I think kids experience it too, they just may not have a name for it, is trying to figure out like, is my relationship healthy and happy? And if it's not, what can I do about it? And especially a lot of adults have confessed to me either directly or through some of the tools I've developed that they're confused. And when we're confused, we tend to ignore our feelings or make excuses for maybe our behavior or a partner's behavior that doesn't feel right. And so one of the ways I think about it is, it kind of comes in layers. And the first layer is, am I safe?
Yeah.
Then do I trust this person? And then third, is this relationship helping or hurting me? And so, really helping people, helping grown-ups, adults focus on not blaming anyone or fixing anyone, but to help them stop guessing about what they should do next and make a clear decision and take steps towards that decision. Because a lot of times I think we wait for any kind of big decision. We wait until we have 100% confidence, and confidence doesn't come from inaction, it comes from action. And so, that's how I would explain it to kids.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
would totally get that. So what did you want to be when you were a kid? What was your dream job?
My dream job, frankly, I wanted to be a singer. Like
Okay.
since I was 5, music has just been a big part of my life. I grew up in church, um, have always just loved music. And I was the kid that stood on my bed, probably in elementary school, I think, with the hairbrush,
Yeah.
singing Dolly Parton's 9 to 5, like full volume.
Yeah.
And, I was in choir in middle school and high school, and singing with a group is still like food for my soul.
Yeah.
Like going, especially that's what I think I get the most out of in going to concerts. My partner and I really enjoy that, and being part of a group, just singing. They know all the words. Just gives me hope for the world and kind of a renewed sense of community that I feel like I can feel in my body.
Yeah. So what was
Yeah.
the first big concert you saw in your life?
Oh gosh. Um, it was, I think it was my junior year of high school, and this will date me, and I don't care. I went with three of my high school friends. We got in line at like 4:30 in the morning at HEB, which is a huge, massive chain of grocery stores in Texas, and got tickets to the New Kids on the
There
Block.
you go. Good job.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
I remember that when that whole thing was happening. It was just yeah, I mean it was the craze. So
Hmm.
let me ask you this. What were the elements or are you from Texas originally?
Yes. Hmm.
Okay. So take me back to those early years and what were the elements that eventually led you to helping people in relationships, coaching,
Hmm.
and being that conduit of bringing people to a better place? How did all of
Yeah,
that happen and become you?
yeah. I was raised in San Antonio by a single mother who, at least post divorce, was very unstable. Money was super scarce. When I was in high school, our home was in foreclosure. And, I think that led me from a earlier age than most to go, okay, I'm never going to put myself in a situation where I'm dependent on somebody else to have like a roof over my head and things like that. But at the same time, as in many ways, I really was raised by a village. Like my home life didn't bring stability, but we had a neighbor across the street who had two girls about my sister and I's age. I had an aunt that I was close to. I had people at church that were in my life, for years on end, and so it was kind of external to the home that my stability came from. And I didn't really recognize until I got divorced in 2016 how much my childhood had shaped the relationship that I chose. So I married my high school sweetheart, and a few years after my divorce, I recognized, oh, the first time I married my mother,
Yeah.
because it was familiar. It was, we gravitate towards what's familiar and uncertain, even if it doesn't serve us. And I think that I've learned so much since then about who I am and what I need. And I think there's so much that our society tells us, well, you got to have this in a partner and you got to have this in a relationship. And this is what a healthy relationship looks like. And a lot of it just simply is not true.
Yeah.
And bringing some of that clarity and, yeah, clarity and confidence to others, because I know how much my life has changed with really getting grounded in who I am and what I want, and finding the partner that complements that and not doesn't try to like shape who I am too much.
So in the realm of arts, entertainment, music, there's always love and love stories, and there's always
Mm,
these figures that are in it. What is one of your
yeah.
favorite love stories of all time, whether it was on screen or
Mm.
otherwise?
Oh, goodness, that's a really good question. I, I think from the outside, it's a love story. I would love to be a fly on the wall because I think we would learn a lot. I'm impressed by the love story of Michelle and Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Like I've been seeing her, I've started reading her book recently, her
Uh-huh.
memoir, and watching her in podcasting. We saw him talk for years, and they seem like they are a couple, a unit of equals,
Yeah.
and that they really value each other. It's clear they can be playful with each other and kind of tease each other a little bit, but there doesn't seem to be that edge that I think some couples who have been together for a long time and maybe unhappily together kind of bring to conversations that
Yeah.
you'll encounter it in social interactions or whatever, a big group dinner somewhere or something, and you're like, ooh, those two are not very happy together, but those
Yeah.
two just seem to be, and
Yeah.
that they support each other, at different, one of their careers may take more precedence at one time or the other, but that they treat each other as equals. And what more can we ask for in our closest, most important relationship?
Yeah, I read her book too, and I always feel like there's a level of both of them that never forgot where they came from.
Yes,
I
yes.
think it's a huge anchor point for who they are, and they've always used that as a part of their kind of future making, their kind of way
Mm,
that they deal with the present, and it's very evident. And it's weird too to hear in the book about when they were courting each other how Barack was just this young guy that just all of the things that were a part of his presidency were always there. It was always a part of
mm,
who he was. There was no sea change. There was
mm.
no like magic trick. It was just he's always just kind of evolved. It was interesting. It was a great book.
Yeah, yeah.
So let me ask you this. In your life, who has been that inspirational figure that's allowed you to navigate personally and professionally to where you're at today?
Mm. There are a lot of them. I think the one who has especially impacted my career, but also even where I am in my career now, was the mentor that I had in my first tenure track job. Her name is Dawn Carlson. She was my mentor my first year. We started doing research together a couple of years later. And so we started out with this work relationship. Um, I feel like what a lot of my career is now is focused on mentoring people, either directly or kind of indirectly. And I learned so much of that from her, like watching her, the way she mentored me and the way I learned from her, and she gave me space to do that. But then what also kind of pushed me, because I think sometimes our inclination can be surround ourselves with yes people. It's an easier path, but she really helped me ask the hard questions and learn how to speak up and use my voice, which I was not that inclined to do previously. And so I would say every part of my work life she has helped shape, and that spills over to my personal life as well. Actually, I saw her just about a month ago. We met up in Sacramento for a girls' weekend, and it was fabulous.
Excellent. So let me ask you
Yeah.
this. If you could meet one person on the planet right now, whether it's in your field or otherwise, that you could hang out with and talk to, maybe ask some
Mm,
questions that might help you on your journey,
mm,
who would you love to
hmm
meet? One person on the planet.
mm. Um, what a great question. I have, especially in the recent years, really admired Whitney Wolfe Herd, founder of Bumble.
Yeah.
The fact that she, in many ways, I think, changed the norms of dating and relationships, and also relationship dynamics, like what's acceptable, what's not, with Bumble initially, firmly being focused on women make the first move, especially starting dating in my 40s and being on the apps. It was like, whoa, it was a
Yeah.
wild, wild west.
Yeah.
And so I really respect the rigor that she brings to the things that she helps create, and just coming at it from a different angle that breaks rules and isn't afraid to break rules. That to me is super inspiring.
It's interesting you were mentioning Dolly Parton. I just listened to a book of kind of interviews and her biography. Have you ever
Mm,
listened to her story before?
I haven't.
Oh,
No,
you
I've just seen her
should.
in interviews or something. I'll have to check that
Oh
out.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
She's
she is
she's
something.
absolutely amazing. In fact,
Hmm.
with my artwork, I do some donating to a theater called the Folly Theater in Kansas City. And
Hmm.
last year, Dolly donated a whole bunch of stuff, and they called the Folly Dolly one day. They just renamed it.
Hmm.
And they said she came in and she's like 5 foot, but her persona is so big. She's like this larger than
Yeah.
life figure. But anyways, it's interesting all of these things that you were talking about
Mm,
it's the embodiment of who she is. So it's an
hmm.
interesting story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So let me ask you this. What is it that gets you up every day to do this work that you do? Because getting into relationships, getting into people's lives, it can be heavy. There can be a lot that goes into it. But what
Mm,
keeps you grounded and not only for your clients, but for yourself? What is that energy when the alarm clock goes off every day?
mm. Yes. Good question. I think initially it's helping people improve or get out of relationships that aren't working. One, because I've experienced that, so lived experience is part of it. But then my anchor job is primarily as a researcher, and I've studied how for decades now how our work and non-work lives affect one another. And I know from the research and from my own experience, like when we're in a great relationship, it has this fabulous ripple effect to other areas of our lives. And when we're in a relationship that isn't safe, isn't trustworthy, is unhealthy and unhappy, it has a similar ripple effect that's damaging. And so, really thinking about, yeah, the ripple effect in a way that the work that I'm trying to do could have positively in the world, especially when our world feels so out of control right now and unpredictable and just lots of anxiety and lots of distrust. Um, I think the mental piece. I'm also and have been like with music, getting outside every day is my thing. And so if I can get among tall trees and like breathing with the trees, that that's food for my soul and just kind of energizes me. And it's very centering, at least for me, it is more so than I think many other things. So um, getting kind of the mental aligned with the physical um, is super important for me.
Yeah. So the ripple effect you mentioned, there's
Hmm.
things that happen in our lives that can be big deals, like a random act of kindness. What has been one of the
Mm-hmm.
nicest things that someone's done for you that's created that ripple effect, that's changed the course of your life?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love this question. Um, and it's something that I think about and recall just recently. So in, let's see, 2002, I was pregnant with my second child. I just started a PhD program, and my spouse at the time became profoundly depressed and was talking divorce a lot. Um, since I was in a PhD program, also unemployed, and so just it felt like the walls were falling in on me and my family. And I was living in Tennessee at the time. My dad was in Texas, but I distinctly remember the first conversation where he shared this, and he said, "Meredith, you can call me 24/7. If you find yourself on a ledge at 2 a.m., you call me." And it was just so, it was kind, it was freeing for me. It gave me kind of that space to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I don't think I ever called him at 2 a.m., but there were times when it was just like I thought it was so painful to put one foot in front of the other each day that
Yeah.
I would call him a couple of times a day and say, "Dad, I'm in a really, really yucky, rough spot right now." And actually, I was down visiting him and my bonus mom about a week and a half ago. He had fallen the week before. He's 81. He'd fallen and broken a hip and was in a rehab hospital after surgery and just really having a tough time. And I got eyeball to eyeball with him and had the opportunity to say, "Dad, if you get on that ledge, it's 2
Yeah.
a.m. Your call comes through, you're an emergency contact, you call me." And he was like, "I remember telling you that." He was like, "I've never meant something more in my entire life." I'm like, "I know you did."
Yeah.
And so it's something that him showing up for me that way has really shaped how I show up for my sons. I've made the same deal with both of them, for my partner, for my friends. Um, and so just that one being there, that commitment,
Yeah.
just life changing. Yeah.
Absolutely. What a great full circle moment. So let
Mm,
me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight, ran into an 18-year-old version of you, ready to go out into the world and change it,
mm,
and you could show that version of you a snapshot of the life that you've lived, a
mm,
short film for 60 seconds, would that young version of you believe that your life turned out this way?
mm. I think yes and no. I think she would believe that I am who I am at my core at 52 years old. I'm a giver. I tend to be a caretaker. And about 10 years ago, I realized I'm a recovering people pleaser. So, like, the essence of who I am hasn't changed. And she'd say, "Oh, yeah, that's who you were at, 12 years old." Um, I've actually thought about this a number of times in some important conversations. And I think she would be so um, flabbergasted is the word we would use in Texas about that I earned a PhD. I've traveled to a bunch of foreign countries. I'm now partnered with a post Mormon boy from Utah. Um, I've started businesses that all of those things, the like achievement things, she would just be taken aback by because I think she was told very much growing up, well, You get up, you grow up, you get married, you have babies, you stay home with them, and that's it.
Yeah.
And so I think there's very much that 12-year-old who still lives inside. Now she's just more confident and adventuresome.
So, of all of these things
Mhm.
you described about how your life has turned out, the overcoming, the success, and the hard things that you've had to overcome, what are you ultimately the
Mhm.
proudest of, the happiest about?
Mm. I'm happiest about the way I have rebuilt my life over the last almost 10 years. So I
Yeah.
got divorced almost 10 years ago. And it, especially in the first few years, it was such a journey of self discovery because I think looking back, I didn't realize it at the time, but I'd been denied and I denied myself, kind of acknowledging who I was and what I wanted. And, um, it started with early on dating with intention and treating dating kind of like a research project with lists and data. And then, during the pandemic, starting some businesses. And I've taken more risks over the last 10 years than I had in all of the 43 years prior. And so it's not like they have all gone as planned, but I've learned and I've grown from all of it. And for me, like that's a win. Like there's very little that we can do or try it's going to make the sky fall down. That's one thing I tell my students, like, try it. The sky's probably not going to fall down. If it does, you can call me and blame
Yeah.
me. But all of those things may help me walk taller. And yeah, I'm just really proud of being willing to take those risks. 12-year-old me would not have taken those risks.
Yeah.
Yeah, much younger me, it was like, oh no. But
No.
the last 10 years, there's been a lot more of it. And with each one, it's like, oh, okay, that one, okay. What
Yeah.
else do we want to try?
Well, when you have
Hmm.
to, and I was in the same boat. I had to, I came out of the same situation 10 years ago and remarried, and
Mm,
you got to
mm,
rebuild your life. There's a real Phoenix thing.
hmm.
You watch
Mm,
everything burn to the ground, right? I
yes,
mean,
absolutely.
it's like that idea of burning down vegetation so that it can regrow stronger. There's so much
Oh, I
that's
thought
so
that.
true about that for sure. So
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
backbone of what you are as a social scientist, and I love Malcolm Gladwell.
Hmm.
You've talked
Mm,
about breaking things down in those similar
mm,
ways. Is that a little bit, if
hmm.
you could go back to that career day classroom, is that a little bit how you construct and help clients and how you carry on as a professional?
I think so. I think we can learn so much. We get insight from looking back, and yet at the same time, I think a lot of times we are too overly inclined to focus on the insight instead of on like getting the clarity and then stepping out so we can like grow that confidence. Um, as a researcher, I am always looking for patterns. Patterns fascinate me, puzzles fascinate me. And so a lot of times it is looking for patterns and like what patterns are we engaging in or are we putting ourselves environments related to that are serving us and not serving us and breaking those patterns, disrupting them in a way that helps us and generally when it helps us, it has that ripple effect, right? It helps other people around us as well.
So, Meredith, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that knows you,
Mm.
colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Mm. I think I am someone who pushes the limits of what I think I'm capable of. Even when it's scary, I kind of like to see what I'm made of and how good I can get at whatever I'm pursuing, whether it's in my career, being a partner, being a parent. With that, I love learning new things, traveling solo, especially internationally, where like you always kind of have to be like watching and listening and learning and taking all this stuff in. Um, I tell students sometimes if I could get paid to travel internationally all year long, that's probably what my other love and work would be.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, pushing those limits and then learning what I'm made of. And for me, that learning and the growing, even out of hard situations that I would not choose for myself or anybody else, if I can learn from it and grow from it, then it's meaningful. And that's what I'm looking for is the meaning in life and why we do what we do and why people do what they do. At heart, I'm a social psychologist, and
Yeah.
so I bring kind of that lens to lots of life. Yeah.
So what was the first big international trip you went on?
Oh, it was very intense. It was right after college, and it was with my university that I just graduated from. It was an archaeological trip where we went to Israel for 6 weeks to do an archaeological dig. And um, even at that time, Israel was just there was lots of political turmoil, religious turmoil, and it was a very intense first international trip.
Yeah,
Like being somewhere, so many different languages, being in the old city of Jerusalem, where sometimes you could just feel the tension depending on kind of what was going on that day or was it in the news, but also so rich, just culture and different ideas and food and the first week or two or three, I was pretty overwhelmed. It was a lot for the system, but it also kind of fueled a fire to like go see and do more.
that's it.
Yeah.
Well, it's always good to get out of America and see antiquated
Mhm.
lands and governments and societies and cultures and how they roll, and
Mhm.
you realize how young we are. When we have all the
Yes,
right, we
yes.
have all these democratic grumblings and rumblings. It's like we're teenagers, if not younger, on the international
Exactly.
landscape.
Oh yes, I
Uh,
think that's right. That actually, my partner and I kind of sort of joke, kind of sort of serious about that. That like the U.S. is that petulant 15-year-old
yeah.
and going through growing pains. And gosh, I hope we figure our way out of it soon
Oh
and start
man.
acting like adults.
I know. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
I gotta know, as a music lover, if you could get into a time machine and see any concert in the history of
Mm.
this world, who would you love to have seen?
Mm. That is a really, really good question.
I mean, they could be
Um,
alive now, but just who would be
yeah,
that
yeah.
performer?
Well, I joke sometimes that if I weren't a university professor, I would want to be a roadie or a backup singer for the group formerly known as the Dixie Chicks, now just known as the
Oh
Chicks.
yeah, yeah,
I absolutely love them. I've only been able to see two of their concerts,
yeah.
but I would go back and I would be one of those people who, the group is playing 500 miles from my house. I'm going to that concert. They're going
Yeah,
to play another one like 3 nights later, 300 miles from my house. I'm going to that one.
yeah.
I love seeing them perform. I love their energy. They're also Texas women and they're badass. And yeah, actually, their most recent album for me was um, in many ways reflective of what I had been through in my prior relationship. And so it's just like I had these Texas girls that were like speaking my language and speaking their truth and just with power and stepping into it. And yeah, if I could see maybe even just go to all her concerts, I'd be that ready for
Yeah,
sure.
you'd be happy. It's interesting. You talk about a band that's gone through some stuff. I mean, they lost a member of the band in a car wreck, right? Wasn't it the lead singer?
Yes, yes.
What?
She had been their initial lead singer.
Okay, okay,
Yes,
okay.
yeah. Like
Yeah.
when they before Natalie Maines joined the group. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay. All right. So it was
Yeah.
before they said what they said on stage and they got the backlash and that whole thing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. It was like the first couple, 2 or 3 years, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Kind of like the fifth
Hmm.
Beatle. That's interesting.
Hmm.
So if
Yeah.
anybody is ready to take the next step to get involved with Partner Lab, any of the other wonderful work that you're doing, where's the best place for them to go?
If they're interested in relationship tools based on relationship science, they should go to mypartnerlab.co. If they want to connect with me, they can find me on LinkedIn. I'm also on TikTok on and off, kind of depending on what my 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 schedule is. Um, those are the main areas,
Okay.
and I'd love to connect with people.
Excellent. So I will put all of those in the show notes. Meredith, this has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your time. It was
Mm.
wonderful to meet you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Joe. It's been a treat to be here. Thank you
Yes,
so much.
absolutely.